Good afternoon, Chris. Thanks for joining us on Business Spotlight.
My pleasure, mate.
Let's start off with telling you a bit about yourself and your business, please.
Yeah, sure. So Cosmos is I guess, neo investment firm. From the outset, what we've tried to do is basically challenge how the investment sector is run. We restructured from a business development agency, so we're actually founded back in 2018. So we've been running under this new model since about this time last year, so it's been about a year. The whole goal of the company is what we essentially did was write down every single problem that we've seen with the investment sector. I basically tried to take all of them off and just flip the whole thing on its head, basically. So we started off with venture capital, but we're now progressing into public markets, real estate, private equity, a whole bunch of different verticals from there.
And how long have you been doing that, Chris?
So the business was founded in 2018 under a different name and a different structure. Under Cosmos Capital Management and our current structure, it's been about a year.
And how did you get into this business?
Into the investment side was a long story. So when we started out, we were basically offering enterprise level deal making and negotiating B2B sales, that kind of thing for larger corporates. We then transitioned to offering that to startup companies. The way we did it was basically dropped our retainers really low to a point where startups could afford it, unlike your larger corporates that we were charging a couple $100,000 per month. We replaced the lost revenue with a commission structure, revenue share, royalty, just whatever happened to make sense at the time. And then working for startups, we encountered a lot of the typical growth pains that you might expect. So we were trying to sell their products, but the website would be horrible. They'd have no pitch deck. Their graphics departments were non-existent. So we started taking on a lot of that work. And as part of that journey, we were actually taking those startup companies to venture capitalists when they needed the funding. And that's really where that process started. So we found a lot of the issues with the VC market that kind of originate from a structural point of view. I don't know if you want me to get into that long list at the moment. It's pretty extensive, but that's where we decided to transition into more of a VC space. And then obviously working in the venture capital landscape, we then started finding problems in later parts of the investment industry, like with public markets, like with real estate, like with private equity and bigger private equity deals. So that's kind of that transition went from there. So my background is in engineering, and then I started working in sales, and then ended up here, I guess, somehow.
Right. Who'd be your ideal client, Chris?
Sorry?
Who'd be your ideal client or customer?
Ooh, we look for really innovative companies. So ideally, a company which has taken an existing industry and created a product or a service within there that really has the potential to revolutionize the way that industry operates. So I guess that would be for the VC side of things, and we kind of follow on that investment strategy with all of our other branches as well.
What's your biggest challenge you're facing in the business right now?
I think like a lot of companies, it's recruitment, to be honest. Finding talent that kind of meets our criteria. We're pretty strict on that front. We try to hire young people as well who are a bit hungrier for success and who are going to be with us for a long time. And I think just unfortunately, current generation of younger folks can be a bit unmotivated, which no fault of their own. But yeah, for us, I think it's recruitment. We've invested a lot of time and money into really solid training and progression in career progress paths for them, where we can't really say that we want to hire someone who's very tenured and who's got a lot of experience, because the way we operate is so different to what's out there. When we tend to hire people who have a lot of experience, they don't actually catch on and they don't perform well under our structure. They just don't see the new picture, I guess, in a sense. So for us, hiring talents is basically getting them when they're straight out of university or even while they're still at uni, and then spending 2-3 years training them up to a point where we're happy with how they're operating. So all of the staff that we have now, or I'd say the majority of them, have been with me since we started the business back in 2018.
Fantastic.
And then it's just a long training cycle.
So, Chris, what's your biggest learning you've had since being a business owner?
Oof. COVID was a big one, I think. Yeah. So we were actually originally planning on doing the restructure just before COVID. We're based in Melbourne, so we were hit with so many different lockdowns and just
horrific.
whole different kind of works. So yeah, I think for us learning to adapt very quickly, which I think is a challenge that a lot of business owners face, because while we were trying to adapt ourselves, we also had all of our clients that were having to adapt. So we were trying to help them through the cycle. And it was just a whole pile of work and people trying to just completely upend their businesses and change how they were run. A lot of our clients at the time were very face-to-face oriented businesses that didn't have any procedures in place for any kind of digital revenue. So that was, I think, a very big challenge. But at the same time, we also learned that, liquidity in that sense is really important. And we're set up now where we can change the entire operational structure and where staff are located and everything, within about 10 minutes notice. That's served us quite well recently with the banks shutting down overseas. We had a couple of portfolio companies that were heavily affected by that, as well as ourselves. And in our environment as well, in our industry, sort of the regulatory landscape changes constantly, and we were able to just kind of keep up with that. So I think that's a big edge for us, is being able to keep up with trends and new technologies that come out very, very quickly. So I think that was a huge learning curve. And I think a lot of business owners struggle with that, is, you especially in early stage companies, when you're an entrepreneur and you've got this great vision that you want to achieve, you try to stick to it and you don't really take into account all the external stuff that is happening, and you don't allow yourself to be flexible in that sense. So I think, sooner you can learn that lesson, the better.
What have you learned about yourself during this journey?
Quite a bit. Actually, I always knew I was hardworking. I think after a certain point, when you've gone through 6 months of doing 15-hour shifts 7 days a week, at some point you kind of go, well, actually, I'm pretty resilient on that front, and you discover a lot of new passions about yourself, and I think that was key for me. Going into this, I was actually never interested in technology. For me, it was more of a tool, but can't say that I was fascinated by tech developments. But seeing what's been happening, especially in recent times with AI and machine learning, I think I've discovered a lot of those passions, and I think I've discovered that I very much enjoy challenges more so than normal people. I think for me, once we take on a startup, those initial phases of new products going to market and getting it out there and facing all those initial challenges is the most exciting part for me. And then once that product is out the market and the company's doing well, I tend to lose a little bit of interest and pass on the account to someone else in the company. Which again, going into it, I thought would be the complete opposite. Starting out, I was targeting, stable companies, and I wanted that stability of revenue, and I thought that those initial phases wouldn't really excite me. But I guess you kind of discover that, any preconception that you have of yourself and your passions going into a business, especially like ours, can shift very, very quickly.
How do you find your inspiration each day to do what you do?
I don't know, to be honest. I think I'm very passionate about what I do. I love all the companies that we've got on our portfolio. It's, just some phenomenal businesses that are out there, and really top-notch founders. And I think I draw a bit of inspiration from them in a sense. And my team as well has been kind of my backbone on this whole thing. I see how hard they work and how much they're pushing towards my vision. So I kind of almost feel like that drives me in and of itself.
Great. What would you say to someone thinking of going into business? And you must have that with all your startups and so on, of course. So.
Yeah. Look, my initial thought is don't, because if your mindset is I'm thinking I might start a business, it's going to break you. It's going to break you very, very quickly, because especially starting up a company from nothing, you have to sacrifice quite a lot. You know, you sacrifice a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships. Your personal life can take a serious toll, because you just have to put in so many hours, and you know, the stress goes through the roof. So if it's just something that you're thinking of doing on a whim, I'd say don't do it. But I think you know when you're meant to be starting a business, when it's something which is not so much of a thought in the back of your head, it's more so something that you just feel like it's something that you can't not do, if that makes sense. So if it's just, I guess, more of an idea of, hey, I'm thinking I might go into business, what do you think? I'd say just don't bother, because it's not going to work out well for you. But if it's something which is just burning you to the point where you can't think about anything else, go for it, pursue your passions, be willing to take risks. And more importantly, I think as a bigger tip, I think people tend to show themselves a bit too much mercy when they go into business, because a lot of things will go wrong from the outset. It's just something, accept it, it's going to happen. And I think too many people are willing to say, well, oh, we failed because this happened, or because I got unlucky here. No, I'd say just be a bit more ruthless with yourself. You know, set yourself extremely high expectations. And I think ironically, the people who are going to really go into business head first, and who have that burning fire that they can't really get rid of, those are the people that are going to behave that way anyway. So I think it almost fulfills itself in that sense.
Chris, if you start your business again, what would you do differently?
Not a thing, to be honest. Look, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm not going to sit here and say that I did everything perfectly, and every decision that I've made has been, you know, the right one. I've made a lot of mistakes. You know, our first year was the biggest blunder you could imagine. But that being said, without those mistakes, I wouldn't have the company that I have today. So you have to just learn from those mistakes and just accept that every decision you make, whether it's right or wrong, is the decision that you made, own it. And if it was a wrong decision, learn from that mistake. So I wouldn't change a thing if I could go back.
Right. Chris, what's the best advice you would give to your 18-year-old self?
See, when I was 18, I tried to start my first company. Failed miserably when I was still at uni. But I think maybe be more willing to pursue your own passions rather than conform to what is expected of you, I think is the best advice I would give myself.
Okay. What does the future look like for you and your business? You know, what are your main challenges?
Going forward?
Going forward.
So we're actually launching a new fund over the next few months. It's a joint venture with a couple of our portfolio companies. We're basically offering to build any piece of software that you could ever dream of in breakneck speeds, you know, a couple of weeks basically. And we're doing all of that free of charge. We're just taking an equity stake up front. So we've got a big backlog of clients waiting. So for us, in terms of the future, we really want to be kind of the central point for any new and innovative tech business out there. Start them off with us, come to us with, you know, just an idea. You don't even need to have your ABN registered at that point. We'll figure all of that stuff down the line. And we just want to be that kind of company that kickstarts any tech innovation that happens. And, you know, associated challenges with that. We've been hiring very aggressively to build up that team, but for us, it's being able to deal with the volume of inquiries that we're already getting for that part of the business. It's called the ARC. We haven't even done a hard launch yet. We haven't done the marketing, but we have a backlog of just a whole bunch of people with really cool ideas that want us to build them for them. So we really want to lower that barrier to entry into the market for everyone. And that comes with just a whole list of challenges, which if you wanted to go into each and every one of them, we'll be sat here for about an hour and a half.
Okay, yeah, sure. That's been great. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing that, your knowledge and your journey through business too. It's been enlightening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Likewise.